She woke up early that morning, even before the sun had fully risen. The sky was still painted in soft shades of gray, and a faint chill hung in the air. Despite the cold, she didn't mind. Today was important. Today, she would finally step into the school she had dreamed about for years. It wasn't just any school. It was the one everyone in her neighborhood spoke about. The school where the best teachers taught. The one where dreams seemed to have wings. She had heard so many stories about its students going on to do incredible things, about opportunities waiting behind its tall gates, and she wanted nothing more than to be a part of that world. She stood in front of the small mirror in her room, her reflection staring back at her with wide, hopeful eyes. She carefully combed her hair, tying it neatly into a simple braid that fell over her shoulder. Her school uniform, though clean and pressed, looked plain compared to the fancy clothes she had seen other students wear in pictures. She didn't have expensive shoes or a brand new backpack, but she carried her books tightly in her hands, as if holding them close could somehow shield her from the judgment she feared. Her mother had been bustling around the tiny kitchen, preparing breakfast, though she barely touched it. The smell of frying eggs and warm bread filled the room, but both of them were too nervous to eat. Her mother's hands were rough from years of hard work, but her movements were careful, gentle. She looked at her daughter with eyes full of hope and worry at the same time. "You are ready, aren't you?" her mother asked softly. She nodded, biting her lip to hide the tremble in her voice. "Yes, mother. I just hope they let me in." Her mother reached out and touched her daughter's shoulder, a silent gesture of support. "You are clever, hardworking, and kind. That is what matters. No one can take that from you. Just go in, be yourself, and let them see who you really are." The journey to the school was short, but it felt endless. She clutched her books as she walked, her shoes making soft thuds on the dusty road. Every step was heavy with anticipation. Along the way, she noticed other children laughing and playing, some in fancy uniforms, some with shiny shoes. A few glanced at her, whispering to one another, and she felt the familiar pang of being different. But she held her head high, reminding herself of her mother's words. Today was her chance to show what she was capable of. The school gates loomed ahead, tall and imposing, with polished metal bars and a sign that gleamed in the sunlight. She paused for a moment, taking it all in. It seemed bigger and grander than she had imagined. She could hear the chatter of students, the distant ring of bells, and the sharp calls of teachers. Her heart pounded in her chest. She took a deep breath, stepped forward, and entered. Inside, the school was a world she had never known. The walls were bright and clean, the floors shiny, reflecting the sunlight that streamed through large windows. Students hurried past her, some with books tucked under their arms, others chatting in groups. She felt small, almost invisible, but she told herself that this feeling would pass. She approached the admissions office, a large room with a polished wooden counter and a stern-looking woman behind it. The air smelled faintly of paper and ink. The girl's hands shook slightly as she handed over her application form, neatly filled out, and a few sheets of her previous school records. The woman looked at her papers, then up at her. Her gaze lingered longer than necessary, sharp and assessing. "Your name?" she asked, her tone polite but with an edge of curiosity. She said it clearly, with just a hint of nervousness in her voice. It's Amina." The woman nodded, scanning the papers again, then set them aside. "And your father's name?" Amina hesitated. She had always been careful with this question. Her father was not someone she had ever met. She had grown up with her mother alone, and the truth of her father's identity was something she didn't know fully. But she answered honestly, I don't know him." The woman raised her eyebrows, her expression tightening slightly. She glanced at the papers once more. "You live with your mother, then?" "Yes, ma'am," Amina replied quietly, her eyes fixed on the floor. The woman made a note in a small register and looked back at her. "I'm afraid we have certain policies here. We admit students based on their family background as well. We need to know more about your father's profession and social standing before we can consider your admission." Amina felt her chest tighten. She had expected that they might ask about her family, but the words still hit her like a sharp blow. She tried to hide her disappointment, but her lips trembled slightly. "My mother works very hard," she said softly. "I study hard too. That should count for something, shouldn't it?" The woman shook her head. "I'm sorry, but we cannot make exceptions. Your application is refused." The word refused echoed in her mind like a cruel sentence. She had come here with hope in her heart, carrying her dreams carefully, and now it felt as though the gates had slammed shut in her face. She wanted to argue, to cry, to beg them to see her for who she was, but something in her held her back. She took a deep breath, nodded politely, and turned to leave. As she walked out of the office, the hall seemed colder, emptier. The students around her continued with their laughter and chatter, oblivious to the storm of emotions inside her. She clenched her books tightly to her chest, holding on to the one thing that made her feel safe. Her knowledge, her determination, and the hope that one day, someone would see her worth. Outside the school, the sun had climbed a little higher, warming her face. She paused for a moment, letting the sunlight touch her cheeks. She thought about her mother waiting at home, about the sacrifices she made every day to provide for her, about the stories she had told her of a better future. She wiped a tear that had escaped down her cheek and whispered to herself, "I won't give up. Not today. Not ever." The walk home was quiet. She didn't speak to anyone, didn't notice the other children playing along the road. Her mind replayed the scene in the admissions office, the sharpness of the word refused, and the look in the woman's eyes. But she also remembered her mother's words, the steady belief in her abilities, the love that had always guided her. That thought gave her strength. When she reached home, her mother was sitting at the small kitchen table, her hands folded neatly. She looked up as Amina entered and smiled softly. "How did it go?" she asked gently. Amina shook her head, a small, tired smile on her lips. They refused me, Mother." Her mother's smile didn't fade. Instead, she reached out and held her daughter's hands. "I know, my child. I know. But this is only a step, not the end. You are meant for bigger things." Today they could not see it, but one day everyone will. Amina nodded, feeling a spark of hope flicker inside her. She knew her mother was right. This refusal, painful as it was, would not define her. It would not stop her dreams. She would find a way, somehow, to make her path, to prove her worth. That evening, she sat by the small window in their home, looking at the sky turning shades of pink and orange. She clutched her books, imagining herself walking through the school gates again, but this time with pride, confidence, and the recognition she deserved. The world might not see her worth today, but she promised herself she would not give up. She would work harder, study longer, and wait for the day when her abilities would speak louder than her background. And as the stars began to twinkle above, she whispered a quiet prayer, asking for strength, courage, and a chance to show the world who she really was. Deep down, she knew that her story was far from over. The first door may have closed, but many others awaited her, doors that would open not because of who she was born to, but because of who she chose to become. The next morning, the house was filled with a quiet energy. Amina woke up feeling heavier than usual, though she could not explain why. The refusal from the school still weighed on her, pressing against her chest as if reminding her of the world's unfairness. Her mother was already in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared breakfast. The rhythm of her movements, the smell of bread and tea, and the familiar warmth of the small home gave Amina a moment of comfort. Her mother looked at her, noticing the sadness lingering in her daughter's eyes. "You will find another way," she said, as though reading Amina's thoughts. "You are strong. You have always been strong." Amina nodded, but she could not shake the feeling that something was missing. Her life had always been simple. Her mother worked tirelessly as a maid, cleaning houses from dawn until dusk, often returning home with tired arms and aching feet. Amina had grown up helping her mother in small ways, sweeping the floors, washing dishes, and tidying the tiny home they shared. Money was always tight, and sometimes they went without things others considered basic. Still, they had each other, and that bond had always been enough. But today, the disappointment of the school refusal felt heavier than ever. It was not just a door that had closed. It felt like the world had drawn a line, separating her from the life she wanted. She wanted to be someone who could make a difference, who could show that her intelligence and hard work mattered more than her background. Yet, the world seemed determined to judge her by what she did not have. After breakfast, Amina went about her usual chores, cleaning and organizing the small home. Her mother watched her quietly. A sense of pride mingled with worry. She knew her daughter's potential, knew that Amina was more than clever, that she had a sharp mind and a kind heart. But she also knew how cruel the world could be, how often people judged by appearances and family names. Amina paused by the window, looking out at the street. Children from wealthier families were already on their way to school, carrying shiny backpacks and wearing crisp uniforms. She watched them laugh and run, and something inside her stirred. A mixture of longing and determination. She did not want to be invisible. She wanted to be seen for who she truly was. As she stood there, her mother came up behind her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Amina, listen to me. There are people who will never see your worth, no matter how hard you try. But one day, the right people will. Don't let today define you. Amina took a deep breath, feeling a small spark of hope. She nodded, determined to believe her mother's words. But she also felt a strange emptiness, a question that had always lingered in her mind. Her father. She had never known him, had never even met him. Her mother had never spoken much about him, only saying that he had been away and that it was better this way. Yet, sometimes, she wondered if knowing him, or if he knowing her, would change everything. That afternoon, after finishing her chores, Amina decided to visit the small library in their neighborhood. It was a quiet place, dusty but filled with books that smelled of history and knowledge. She loved spending time there, reading about people who had changed the world, stories of inventors, leaders, and heroes. She wanted to be like them, not because she craved fame, but because she wanted to prove that intelligence, courage, and kindness could come from anywhere. As she walked to the library, she noticed the familiar faces of neighbors and shopkeepers. Some smiled and greeted her. Others glanced quickly and returned to their business. She had always been polite, always kept to herself, and yet, she knew people judged her by the life she had been born into. She ignored it, focusing on the rows of books waiting for her. Inside the library, she found a quiet corner and pulled out a worn notebook she had been keeping. In it, she wrote down her dreams, her goals, and her frustrations. She wrote about the school refusal, about the unfairness of being judged by her mother's profession, about the longing to belong somewhere she could grow and learn. As she wrote, a sense of calm washed over her. Writing was her way of making sense of the world, a way to take control when so many things felt out of reach. While she was lost in her thoughts, a man entered the library. He was tall and carried himself with an air of quiet authority. He wore simple clothes, but there was something about him that made people notice. He walked to the front desk, speaking briefly with the librarian, then scanned the room with keen eyes. Amina felt a sudden, inexplicable pull, though she did not understand why. The man's gaze landed on her notebook. He walked over slowly, curiosity in his eyes. "Are you writing your dreams?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. Amina looked up, startled. She nodded, clutching the notebook tightly. "Yes, sir." He smiled faintly. "That is good. Dreams are important. They are the first step toward changing your life." Something about his words struck her deeply. There was no judgment, no pity, only recognition. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen. She closed her notebook gently and said, "Thank you." The man studied her for a moment longer, then nodded and walked away. Amina watched him go, a mixture of confusion and curiosity swirling inside her. Who was he? Why had his presence felt so significant? She did not know, but she felt a sense of hope stir again, as though the universe was telling her that her life was about to change. When she returned home, she found her mother waiting. As always, there was a letter on the table marked with an official seal. Her mother picked it up, her hands trembling slightly. "Amina, I think someone has been looking for you." Amina's heart raced as she took the letter. She opened it carefully, revealing the contents. The letter was from a law firm, addressed to her mother, but clearly concerning Amina. It spoke of her father, of his identity, and of the fact that he had recently discovered her existence. Her mother's hands shook as she read it aloud. "Your father, he wants to meet you. He has been searching for you for a long time. He did not know where you were until recently." Amina felt as if the world had shifted beneath her feet. She had spent her life imagining what it would be like to meet him, to know him, but never had she imagined it would happen like this, through an official letter. A whirlwind of emotions filled her chest: excitement, fear, curiosity, and a strange sense of destiny. "Mother, is this real?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Her mother nodded, tears in her eyes. "Yes, my child, it is real. I did not want to tell you before, but now, the time has come." Amina sat down, clutching the letter to her chest. She felt a strange mixture of fear and hope. For years, she had imagined that meeting her father might change everything. Perhaps he could help her, guide her, or even give her the life she dreamed of. But she also knew that nothing could erase the years she had already lived, the life she had built with her mother. The next few days passed in a blur. Her mother helped her prepare, talking about what to say, how to behave, and how to stay calm. Amina practiced smiling, speaking politely, and answering questions. She wanted to make a good impression, but more than that, she wanted to understand who this man was, why he had been absent, and what it meant for her future. Finally, the day arrived. Amina's father was coming to meet them. She waited by the window, watching for the car that would bring him. Her heart pounded with anticipation, each passing moment stretching into what felt like hours. She thought about her mother's sacrifices, about her own dreams, and about the life she had imagined beyond the small streets of their neighborhood. When the car finally pulled up, she saw a man step out. He was tall, dignified, and had an aura of quiet strength. He looked around, as if searching for someone, and then his gaze fell on her. Their eyes met, and in that instant, Amina felt a strange recognition, a connection she could not explain. Her father walked toward her, and for a moment, neither spoke. Words seemed unnecessary. Then he spoke softly, almost reverently, "Amina, my daughter." Tears welled up in her eyes as she nodded. "Father." He knelt down to her level, taking her hands gently. "Yes, it's me. I know I have been absent, but I want to know you, to be part of your life if you will let me." Amina's heart swelled. She had dreamed of this moment, imagined it in countless ways, but the reality was even more powerful. She realized that her life was about to change, not because of wealth or status, but because she was finally being recognized, finally being seen for who she was. Her mother watched silently, a smile of relief and pride on her face. The years of struggle, of quiet perseverance, were finally meeting a turning point. Amina had faced rejection, disappointment, and the harshness of the world, but now, for the first time, there was hope. Real, tangible hope that her dreams could take flight. And as she sat there, holding her father's hands and looking into his eyes, she knew that the journey ahead would not be easy. There would still be challenges, still be people who judged by appearances, still be obstacles to overcome. But for the first time, she also knew that she was not alone. Her story, she realized, was only just beginning. The next morning felt different. The air seemed lighter, the sun warmer, as if the world itself had shifted to match the new reality of Amina's life. For the first time, she did not wake up with the familiar weight of worry pressing down on her chest. Today, she would meet someone who had been a mystery her entire life, her father. The thought made her heart race with excitement, fear, and curiosity, all at once. Her mother had been up early, preparing a small breakfast and helping Amina choose her clothes. "You want to look presentable," her mother said, smiling softly. "But most importantly, just be yourself. That is enough." Amina nodded, feeling a little more confident. She chose a simple dress, neat but not flashy. She wanted to make a good impression, but she also wanted to stay true to who she was. She braided her hair carefully and took a deep breath, trying to calm the fluttering in her stomach. The drive to meet her father felt surreal. She sat quietly in the car, staring out the window at the familiar streets of her neighborhood passing by. Everything seemed the same, yet she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The thought of finally seeing him after all these years filled her with a mix of joy and nervousness. What would he be like? Would he care for her? Would he accept her? These questions swirled in her mind, making it hard to focus. When they arrived, she saw a large house that seemed to glow under the morning sun. It was unlike anything she had ever known, with clean, wide streets, neatly trimmed gardens, and a sense of order that felt foreign. She stepped out of the car, clutching her mother's hand for reassurance, and walked toward the front door. Her mother gave her a gentle squeeze and whispered, "You are going to be fine." Amina took a deep breath and knocked. The door opened, and a man stood there, taller than she had imagined, with kind eyes that seemed to see right through her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. It was as if time had paused, allowing them to take in the moment that had been years in the making. "Hello, Amina," he said softly, his voice calm but warm. "I am your father." Amina felt a lump rise in her throat. The word felt strange and powerful at the same time. She nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. I'm Amina," she whispered. He smiled faintly, kneeling down to meet her eyes. "I know, my daughter. I have dreamed of this moment, hoped for this moment. I want to know you, to be part of your life if you will let me." Tears welled up in Amina's eyes, and she felt an overwhelming rush of emotions. Fear, happiness, curiosity, and a deep longing she had carried all her life. I want that too," she said softly. The next few hours passed like a dream. Her father told her about himself, about the life he had led, the reasons for his absence, and the deep regret he felt for not being there sooner. Amina listened carefully, absorbing every word. She realized that he was not just a stranger or a figure of wealth and influence, but a person with feelings, mistakes, and hopes, just like her. Her mother watched quietly, smiling but keeping her emotions in check. She had carried Amina through years of struggle, had shielded her from pain, and now she was watching her daughter finally meet the missing piece of her life. As the conversation continued, Amina noticed something shift within herself. The doubts and insecurities she had carried for so long seemed to fade slightly. She realized that her worth was not defined by the world's judgment, by a school's refusal, or by the absence of a parent. Her strength, her intelligence, and her kindness were hers, and they had always been enough. By afternoon, her father suggested they take a walk in the nearby garden. The place was large and beautiful, filled with flowers, trees, and neatly paved paths. Amina walked beside him, listening as he spoke of his childhood, his work, and the hopes he had for the future. It felt strange to hear him talk about a life she had never known, yet it also filled a gap in her heart that she hadn't realized was there. As they walked, her father asked her about school, about her dreams, and about the things that made her happy. Amina spoke openly, telling him about her love for learning, her ambition to study in a good school, and her disappointment at being refused admission yesterday. She did not hide her emotions, and he listened patiently, nodding and encouraging her with every word. "You should never be judged by where you come from," he said firmly. "Your talent, your effort, and your heart are what matter, and anyone who cannot see that is blind to the truth." Amina felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. For the first time she felt understood, valued, and seen, not for her background but for who she was. The disappointment of the previous day still lingered, but now it was tempered by hope and support she had never experienced before. When they returned home, her father suggested visiting the school together. Amina's heart skipped a beat. Could he really change what had happened? Could he help her gain admission to the school she had dreamed of? She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Her mother looked at her with a gentle smile. "This is your chance, Amina. Go show them who you are." You deserve it. The journey to the school felt different this time. Amina walked with her father by her side, and the confidence in her step had returned. She felt a sense of protection and encouragement she had never known. As they approached the gates, she noticed the same staff and students she had seen the day before. Her stomach tightened with nervousness, but her father's presence gave her courage. They entered the admissions office together. The same woman who had refused Amina yesterday looked up in surprise, her eyes widening as she took in the scene before her. "This is Amina?" she asked, her tone uncertain. "Yes," Amina's father said firmly, his voice calm but commanding. "She is my daughter, and she deserves to be admitted to your school." Amina stood quietly, holding her books tightly, feeling a strange mixture of fear and pride. She had imagined this moment countless times, but reality felt different. Her father's words carried weight, authority, and respect, but she also knew that her own character and determination mattered in this moment. The woman behind the desk cleared her throat, glancing at her papers, then back at him. I was not aware. I understand," her father interrupted gently. "But now you are. She is an intelligent, hardworking, and capable young girl. I trust that your school values merit and potential above all else. Please reconsider her application." Amina could feel the tension in the room, the subtle shift from judgment to consideration. She stood quietly, hoping that her own efforts, her own determination, would finally be recognized. After a long moment, the woman nodded slowly. "Very well. We will admit her with immediate effect." Relief and joy flooded Amina's heart. She looked at her father, tears welling in her eyes, and whispered, "Thank you." He smiled, kneeling down to her level once more. "No, Amina, you have earned this. Today is only the beginning. Remember, your life is defined by your choices, your courage, and your determination, not by what others say or think." As she walked out of the office, officially accepted into the school, she felt a sense of triumph unlike anything she had known. The disappointment of yesterday, the rejection, the feeling of being judged, it all seemed distant now. She realized that her worth had never depended on anyone's approval. Her knowledge, her hard work, and her heart had brought her here, and now she had the chance to prove herself. Her father stayed by her side as she toured the school, introducing her to teachers, showing her the classrooms, and explaining the programs she could take. Amina absorbed every detail, her mind buzzing with excitement and ideas. She felt as if a new world had opened for her, one filled with possibilities, challenges, and growth. That evening, as they returned home, Amina sat quietly, reflecting on the day. She had faced rejection, met her father, and gained entry into the school of her dreams, all within a span of a few days. The world felt vast, full of opportunities and challenges, but she no longer felt small or invisible. Her mother hugged her tightly, whispering, "I am so proud of you, Amina. You faced everything with courage, and look where it has brought you." Amina smiled, feeling the warmth of her mother's love and her father's support. She knew that the journey ahead would not be easy, that there would still be challenges and obstacles, but she also knew that she was not alone. With her mother's guidance and her father's support, she felt ready to face whatever came next. As she lay in bed that night, she thought about the path that had led her here, the struggles, the hard work, the quiet moments of hope. She realized that every step, even the painful ones, had shaped her into the person she was becoming. And she knew, deep in her heart, that this was only the beginning. Her story was no longer just about survival or acceptance. It was about courage, resilience, and the power of believing in oneself. And with that belief, she felt ready to embrace the future, no matter what it held. The next morning, Amina felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had been accepted into the school, officially, yet the reality of stepping into those classrooms still made her heart pound. Her father had stayed up late the night before, helping her plan what to say to teachers and classmates, making sure she understood that her worth was not tied to anyone's opinion. Her mother had whispered words of encouragement, reminding her that courage was not the absence of fear, but moving forward despite it. As she walked toward the school that morning, clutching her books tightly, she noticed the familiar gates looming ahead. They no longer seemed intimidating in the same way. Today, she felt a sense of ownership, a quiet confidence that had not been there before. Her father walked beside her, his presence steadying her, giving her courage she had never known. The moment they entered the admissions office, all eyes turned toward her. The woman who had refused her just days ago was there, along with a few other staff members. The expression on the principal's face was one of shock and surprise. Amina's father stood tall, calm, and commanding, but it was Amina herself who drew the attention of everyone in the room. "This is Amina," her father said clearly, his voice firm but gentle. "She is my daughter. She is intelligent, hardworking, and capable. She deserves to be here." Amina could feel the shift in the atmosphere. The same staff members who had turned her away now looked at her differently, their surprise mingled with awkwardness. Some whispered to one another, glancing at the papers on the desk, while others avoided eye contact, unsure of how to react. The principal cleared her throat, trying to regain composure. We were not aware of your connection," she said, her voice hesitant. Amina's father nodded. "That is understandable. But she is here now, and I trust that your school values merit, determination, and potential above all else. I expect her to be treated with the respect every student deserves." Amina stood quietly, her heart racing. She could feel the power of her father's words, but she also knew that her own behavior and abilities would speak louder than his influence. She straightened her back, held her head high, and met the eyes of the staff. She was no longer the timid, uncertain girl who had been turned away days before. She was a young woman with confidence, dignity, and the quiet strength that came from years of struggle. After a tense moment, the principal nodded slowly. "Very well. We will ensure her enrollment is completed immediately." Relief flooded through Amina's body. She had feared that even with her father's support, there might be resistance. But now, she felt a sense of triumph and justice, subtle yet powerful. She had been refused because of circumstances beyond her control, but today, she had reclaimed her place. As the enrollment process began, she was introduced to teachers who had heard of her father, some with curiosity, others with polite smiles. A few students noticed her as well, whispering to one another, trying to piece together who this new girl was. Amina felt the eyes on her but did not shy away. She knew that she could not control their reactions, only her own. After completing the formalities, her father suggested they walk through the school. The corridors were bright and clean, filled with the chatter and laughter of students. Amina felt a mixture of awe and nervousness. She had dreamed of being in this place, yet the reality was overwhelming. Every classroom she passed, every teacher she saw, reminded her of the opportunities now within reach. Her father stopped by one classroom and spoke with the teacher, introducing Amina and explaining her background briefly. The teacher looked surprised, then smiled warmly. "We are happy to have her," she said, offering a hand. Amina shook it, feeling a warmth that made her heart swell. This was her chance, a fresh start, and she intended to make the most of it. As they continued walking, students began to take notice. Some stared openly, their curiosity obvious. Others whispered to their friends, trying to understand who she was and why she seemed different from the rest. Amina felt the weight of their attention but did not let it overwhelm her. She knew that respect and friendship were earned, not given. During lunch, she found a quiet spot in the courtyard. She had brought a small meal with her, simple and homemade, just like every day. Some students glanced at her, whispering, while others ignored her completely. She ate quietly, keeping her focus on her surroundings, observing how the school operated, and thinking about how she could fit in without losing herself. Her father watched from a nearby bench, a gentle smile on his face. "Don't worry about what others think," he said. "Your character and your work will speak louder than any rumors or whispers." Amina nodded, taking comfort in his words. She realized that she had spent so much of her life trying to prove herself to others who had judged her unfairly. Now, she understood that she only needed to prove herself to those who mattered, and most importantly, to herself. In the days that followed, Amina began attending classes regularly. At first, some students were distant, unsure how to approach the girl whose father was well known. Others were openly curious, asking questions and trying to engage her in conversation. Amina responded with politeness and warmth, never arrogance, never boasting about her father. She wanted to be known for her abilities, not her lineage. Her teachers quickly noticed her dedication. She was attentive, asked thoughtful questions, and completed her assignments with care. Her classmates began to see her not as the daughter of a wealthy man but as a diligent, intelligent student. Slowly, friendships started forming, built on shared interests and mutual respect. One afternoon, during a science class, a teacher asked the students to work in pairs for an experiment. Amina was paired with a girl who had initially been distant and a little skeptical. As they worked together, the girl noticed Amina's knowledge and skill. By the end of the experiment, the girl smiled and said, "You're really good at this. I'm glad we're partners." Amina smiled back, feeling a warmth that had been missing in her life. She realized that acceptance could not be demanded or forced. It had to be earned through kindness, effort, and integrity. Outside the classroom, the school environment continued to adjust to her presence. Some students were still curious about her father, whispering in hallways or glancing her way during breaks. But Amina learned to ignore the murmurs, focusing instead on her studies and her own growth. She knew that the opinions of others could not define her journey. Her father continued to support her quietly, attending school events, speaking with teachers, and occasionally walking her to and from school. He never imposed his presence on her, never tried to use influence to overshadow her achievements. Instead, he encouraged her to rely on her own abilities, to take pride in her work, and to build her life with integrity. One day, the principal called Amina into her office. Amina felt a flicker of nervousness. Would this be praise or something else? She stepped inside, holding her books tightly, and stood before the large desk. "Amina," the principal began, her tone formal but softer than before. "I must apologize for how things were handled before. It was wrong of us to judge you based on your background. We have seen how well you have settled in, and your attitude and dedication are impressive. I hope you will continue to thrive here." Amina nodded politely, a small smile forming. "Thank you, ma'am. I will do my best." The principal studied her for a moment longer, then nodded, as if acknowledging a truth she had learned the hard way. Amina realized that respect often came not from power or wealth, but from perseverance, humility, and determination. Over the next few weeks, Amina's confidence grew. She participated in class discussions, helped fellow students when they struggled, and continued to excel academically. Her friendships deepened, built on shared effort and mutual respect rather than status or background. She began to feel a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. Yet, she never forgot the struggles that had shaped her. She remembered the long days helping her mother, the rejection at the school gates, and the quiet moments of hope she had clung to. Those experiences had given her strength, empathy, and determination. They were not burdens. They were the foundation of the person she was becoming. By the end of the term, Amina had not only been accepted into the school, but had also earned the respect of her teachers and classmates. She had turned a moment of rejection into a journey of growth, proving to herself and others that her worth was defined by her actions, her heart, and her perseverance. Her father watched quietly, proud but never imposing. He knew that true success would come from her own efforts, not from his influence. And as Amina walked through the corridors, smiling at friends and teachers alike, he realized that she had already begun to shape her own future. Strong, capable, and full of promise. Amina herself knew that challenges would come, that some people would still judge or doubt her, but she had learned a powerful lesson. That dignity, determination, and kindness were stronger than fear, prejudice, or circumstance. And with that knowledge, she felt ready to face whatever lay ahead, confident that her journey had only just begun. The days that followed were filled with a rhythm Amina had never experienced before. Her mornings began with the school bell ringing in the distance, a sound that once had brought anxiety and doubt, now bringing purpose and excitement. She walked through the school gates with confidence, her books tucked neatly under her arm, her head held high. Each step was a small victory, a quiet declaration that she belonged here. Not because of her father, but because of her own abilities, her persistence, and the courage she had nurtured over the years. Her father continued to support her, though he never overshadowed her achievements. He would walk her to school, but always stayed back during classes, allowing her to navigate the school environment on her own. He understood that real growth came from experience, from facing challenges independently. He would later ask her about her day, listen carefully to her stories, and offer advice only when she sought it. Their bond grew stronger with every conversation, every shared moment of laughter or reflection. Her mother, too, remained a quiet pillar of strength. Though she did not have the wealth or influence of Amina's father, she had something even more valuable: unwavering love and wisdom shaped by years of sacrifice and struggle. She would call Amina in the evenings, asking about her studies, her friends, and her day, always listening with pride and care. Amina often found herself thinking about how much she owed her mother, how every lesson in humility, resilience, and kindness had prepared her for this new chapter of life. At school, Amina's presence slowly began to shift perceptions. The students who had initially whispered about her father's influence began to notice something else: her intelligence, her dedication, and the way she treated others. She helped classmates who struggled with assignments, offered thoughtful answers in discussions, and participated in school activities with enthusiasm. Her actions spoke louder than any rumor or speculation, and soon, she became someone others admired, not because of who her father was, but because of who she had chosen to be. One day, during a school assembly, the principal addressed the students. "We have a new student among us who has shown great determination and dedication. She has reminded us all that talent and effort are not defined by background or circumstances." Amina felt a blush creep across her cheeks as students turned to look at her, some nodding in acknowledgement, others whispering quietly. She smiled politely, feeling a warmth she had never known before. It was one thing to be accepted, but it was another to be genuinely seen and respected for her abilities and character. Outside of school, life at home had also begun to change. Her father had become a steady presence, not as a source of authority, but as a guide and supporter. They spent evenings reading together, discussing history, science, and current events. He encouraged her curiosity and celebrated her achievements, no matter how small. Amina felt an unusual mix of pride and comfort. She had grown used to facing challenges alone, but now she understood that having someone believe in you, stand beside you, and guide you could make the journey richer, not easier. Her mother watched these moments with quiet joy. She remembered the days when she worried whether Amina would ever be recognized for her talents, when she feared that the world would only see her daughter's humble beginnings. Now, she saw her daughter standing tall, surrounded by opportunities, building a future with her own courage and determination. The tears she sometimes shed were no longer from worry, but from pride and relief. Her child was no longer only surviving, she was thriving. As weeks turned into months, Amina began to settle into the rhythm of her new life. She excelled in her studies, earned the respect of her teachers, and made friends who valued her for her character rather than her lineage. Yet, she never forgot the struggles that had shaped her. She continued to wake up early, study diligently, and help her mother with chores. She understood that her past had given her strength, and she honored it by remaining humble, grounded, and kind. One afternoon, as she sat in the library reading, a classmate approached her. "Amina, I just wanted to say you inspire me. You didn't let anything stop you, and you've shown all of us that hard work and determination matter more than anything else." Amina smiled, feeling a warmth that went beyond mere words. She realized that her journey was no longer just about her own success. It was about setting an example, inspiring others to believe in themselves, and proving that circumstances could not define destiny. Her father watched these moments with quiet pride. He knew that true influence was not in wealth or authority, but in the values, guidance, and belief one instills in another. He had found his daughter, but more importantly, he had found a partner in her journey. A young woman who was determined to shape her own life with integrity, courage, and intelligence. Meanwhile, her mother continued to support her with quiet, unwavering love. She would often sit by the window in the evenings, watching Amina study or read, her hands folded in satisfaction. She remembered the days when every meal was a struggle, when every step forward felt uncertain. Now, she saw her daughter flourishing, not because the world had finally noticed, but because Amina had never stopped believing in herself. As the year progressed, Amina achieved remarkable success at school. She excelled in exams, participated in extracurricular activities, and even helped organize a small science fair. Her teachers praised her dedication, her classmates admired her courage, and her parents watched with pride as she blossomed into the person they had always believed she could become. Every accomplishment felt like a triumph over the years of struggle, rejection, and uncertainty she had endured. Yet, Amina remained humble. She never boasted about her father's presence, never flaunted her privileges, and always treated everyone with respect. She knew that true strength lay not in wealth or influence, but in character, integrity, and empathy. Her journey had taught her that life could be unfair, but resilience, courage, and kindness could overcome even the harshest obstacles. One evening, as Amina sat with her father and mother, they reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. Her father spoke first, his voice calm but full of emotion. "Amina, I know I was absent when you needed a father, and I cannot take those years back. But I want you to know that I am here now, and I will support you in any way I can." Amina reached out and took his hand. "I don't need you to make up for the past. I only need you to be here now. And that is enough." Her mother smiled, squeezing her hand. "You have grown into someone extraordinary, not because of anyone else, but because of your own heart and determination. That is what matters most." Amina felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She realized that her life had transformed not because the world suddenly recognized her worth, but because she had never stopped believing in it herself. The struggles, the rejection, the long days of hard work, all of it had shaped her, prepared her for the opportunities that lay ahead, and taught her the value of courage, humility, and resilience. Over the next year, Amina continued to thrive. She formed meaningful friendships, excelled in her studies, and even began mentoring younger students who faced challenges similar to those she had once endured. She became a symbol of hope and perseverance within the school, demonstrating that circumstances did not define potential, and that determination could overcome even the most formidable obstacles. Her father, now a quiet presence in her life, continued to support her without imposing. He celebrated her achievements, offered guidance when sought, and shared his wisdom without overshadowing her independence. He understood that true love and guidance came from allowing someone to grow, to make their own choices, and to claim their own victories. Her mother remained the heart of their home, providing stability, love, and encouragement. She had always known her daughter's potential, and now she saw it recognized in ways she had only dreamed of. The years of sacrifice, of quiet perseverance, had borne fruit, and she watched with joy as Amina embraced the life she had earned through her own courage and determination. One afternoon, as Amina walked through the school courtyard, she paused to look at the faces around her. Students were laughing, studying, playing, and growing, each with their own dreams and struggles. She realized that her journey was not unique in its challenges, but it was unique in how she had responded. She had faced rejection, uncertainty, and doubt, yet she had persevered. She had turned obstacles into opportunities and hardships into lessons. Amina smiled to herself, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. She had learned that life could be unpredictable, that people could judge unfairly, and that opportunities could sometimes be delayed. But she had also learned that resilience, courage, and belief in oneself could open doors that once seemed impossible. She had discovered her own strength, the power of determination, and the value of humility and kindness. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow across the school grounds, Amina sat quietly on a bench, reflecting on her journey. She remembered the long mornings of study, the quiet moments with her mother, the day she had first met her father, and the fear and excitement that had accompanied her acceptance into the school. Every experience, every challenge, every moment of doubt had shaped her into the person she had become. She knew that life would continue to bring challenges, that there would be moments of doubt, difficulty, and judgment. But she also knew that she had the strength to face them, the courage to persevere, and the wisdom to remain true to herself. She had learned that true success was not measured by wealth, status, or recognition, but by character, resilience, and the ability to inspire and uplift others. As she walked home that evening, her books clutched under her arm and a smile on her face, Amina felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had faced rejection, discovered family, and embraced opportunities that had once seemed out of reach. She had grown into a young woman of strength, grace, and integrity, someone capable of shaping her own future and inspiring others along the way. Her story was no longer just about overcoming hardship. It was about resilience, courage, and the power of believing in oneself. It was about the quiet strength that comes from years of perseverance, the unwavering support of family, and the recognition that true worth lies not in what the world sees, but in what one carries in their heart. And as the stars began to twinkle above, Amina whispered a quiet promise to herself, to continue growing, learning, and living with integrity, courage, and kindness. She knew that the journey ahead would be long and filled with challenges, but she also knew that she was ready. She was no longer the girl who had been refused admission. She was a young woman who had earned her place, not just in school, but in life, and she would face the future with confidence, grace, and unwavering determination. Her story, which had begun with rejection and uncertainty, had transformed into a tale of triumph, resilience, and hope. And in that transformation, Amina discovered something far greater than acceptance or recognition. She discovered the strength and courage that had always been within her.